Trust in people. You need to trust in something. You might want to trust in systems. You might want to trust in software. But consider for a minute trusting in people. First story. How did Zappos build a shoe store that was worth $1 billion? If you think about it, all Zappos does is sell shoes that anybody could sell at a pretty low price online. Just about anyone could have opened an online shoe store. How to turn an online shoe store into something that Amazon buys for $1 billion? Well, the answer is that customer service isn't an expense. Customer service is an asset. What Tony Hsieh, one of the founders of Zappos, did was he said to his customer service people, I'm going to measure how long you spend on the phone and how much it costs. And then he said something surprising. He said, I want it to cost as much as possible, and I want you to stay on the phone for as long as possible. Every other company says this is an expense. Customers are fungible. Process them. Get them over with. Tony said, wait a minute. By the time someone is calling our customer service line, they're already a customer. They have a problem. They are raising their hand. They're eager to talk to us. I think the record is an 8-hour-long phone call. One of my favorite stories is the one about a woman whose mom passed away. And she got to her mother's former home. And like some people who are getting on in years, she had been hoarding things and buying things she didn't need. And this woman found that her mother had bought dozens and dozens of pairs of shoes from Zappos over the years and never even opened the boxes. It was long past time to return the shoes, but the woman called Zappos. And when she told the person on the phone what had happened, first, she got a willing ear. She got a smile. She got a virtual hug on the phone. Then the person at Zappos said, we're going to send a messenger to your house tomorrow. Just take all the boxes and put them in the box we send you, and we'll take care of it. We know you're in mourning. You don't have to do anything. And then the florist showed up with a bouquet of flowers for this woman and her loss. And so the question is, isn't that a good reason to open a shoe store? Isn't that a great opportunity to connect with people in a way that matters? If you want to be really profit-oriented about it, isn't that way cheaper than running an ad? Because I heard the story from someone who heard the story from someone who heard the story. The fact is that because Zappos decided to like its customers, engage with its customers, and trust its customers, they got back far more than they put into their customer service budget. And we continue. What about all those emails you've been sending out? Maybe you do an email blast. Maybe you have a list. Maybe that list, all those email addresses you've collected or bought or traded or sold or whatever, maybe that list is just a number to you. Send out 1,000 emails, get 3 orders. Send out 100,000 pitches, maybe get a meeting. Wait a minute. The people on that list are people. They're not just email addresses. And if you treat the email addresses on that list like they're nothing but data, why should you be surprised that the people you're emailing don't act like anything but data? That what we have is a chance, for the first time in the history of the world, to reach out to large numbers of people who want to hear from us, to deliver anticipated, personal, and relevant messages to people who want to get them. What we have the chance to do for the first time at scale is treat different people differently. That was impossible 50 years ago. That one of the inventors of the price tag was Macy's. They invented the price tag because they couldn't trust their clerks to bargain with people about what this should cost or what that should cost. And Macy's, a department store, a giant, giant building where there's something for everyone, but everyone has to choose from the same things. That's not true online anymore. If you realize that the internet is not a mass marketing system, it's bad at that, but that it's a micro marketing system, that what you have is the chance to find that smallest viable audience, those people who share hopes and dreams, and serve them. And if there's a second audience, serve them differently. that what we get the chance to do is truly have people opt in, to decide to build something that people would miss if we were gone. And too often, that's not what happens. Too often, entrepreneurs want customers to solve their problem. How am I going to make my first quarter numbers? How am I going to make a profit? How am I going to sell this thing? I need customers to solve my problem. But every once in a while, an entrepreneur shows up and realizes that, wait a minute, I can solve their problems. If you're on the hook to solve someone else's problem, it changes everything. What does it mean? If someone comes to you as a customer and you have a competitor who can solve their problem better than you can, you need to send them to your competitor, because I thought you were in the business of solving their problem. This posture shift is truly profound, because what it means is you can get back to what probably motivated you to do this in the first place, which is service, which is the idea of practical empathy. Realizing that other people don't want what you want, see what you see, need what you need, and that's okay. But if you go to them, as opposed to insisting that they come to you, and you figure out how to watch and listen, you can learn to see. And once you learn to see, then you will be seen. And what about your employees? Your employees are people too. It's possible to build an entrepreneurial entity with no employees whatsoever. It is possible to start a business where you have average employees earning below average wages, in which simply through your magic and force of will, you create an enormous amount of value. But both of those things are really unlikely. What is far more likely is that the people you hire will determine the company you build. And the people you hire have options. They have options to work for other organizations, bigger ones, smaller ones, to work on their own. They have the option of being a freelancer. So if we look at the gig economy, businesses like Uber that race to the bottom and say, we'll take any employee as long as they meet our requirements, end up building something that might be big, but it could have been better. Because the opportunity is to realize that we don't want to build a job that can be done by the cheapest available person. Because if every job in the entire organization can be filled by the cheapest available person, that's the sort of organization we end up with. The alternative is to look for a linchpin, somebody that would be hard to live without, somebody who doesn't necessarily become a square peg in a square hole, but instead brings unique personality and skills and passion to the job. What does the receptionist do at the old-fashioned office? Well, what this person used to do is make sure bad guys don't come in, maybe offer a cup of coffee. But what would the world's best receptionist do? This person would know the calendar of everyone who was coming. They would create a hospitable environment. They would figure out how to make the person who is coming be in a better mood than they were before they got there, which makes it way more likely they'll say yes to whatever deal is on the table. Way more likely they'll bring positive energy to that meeting they came to. This simple job isn't so simple, not if you're willing to commit to somebody who is going to be a contributor. But we can go down the list and do this for every one of the jobs in the organization you're hoping to build. Instead of saying, I'm going to build a team that will never cause me to lose sleep because I can replace any of them at a moment's notice, you could say, I'm going to build a team that I am dependent on, and I'm going to live my life as if I am. That we're going to build an organization where it is the reflection of our passions and talents. One more Zappos story for you. As Tony was building the business, they were hiring a lot of people. Once you got hired, there was a 2-week training program. That's expensive. You got paid for 2 weeks while they trained you. And at the end of the training program, they decided who they wanted to keep for the long haul. But before they did that, they sat the employee down. And they said to this person, here's $2,000. Maybe it was $3,000. Here's a lot of money. You can have it if you quit today. This is crazy, isn't it? Paying the best people they've recruited and trained thousands of dollars to quit. Why would they do that? Well, it's pretty simple when you think about it. If someone's willing, after they've learned about the inside of Zappos, to walk out that door for just a couple $1,000, you don't want them. The people you want are the people who are on the journey, the people who have made a commitment, the people who see what you see and want to go where you are going, because that commitment is what you need internally at the very same time that the modern world lets us take so much of our work and make it external. The other factor here is that it is easier than ever to outsource the work. If you're doing your own translation, that's a mistake, because a translation service can do it for you in half the time and twice as well. If you can outsource it, you probably should. Because unless you're going to make it better by doing it in-house, you're distracting you and your team from the real work. The real work is the work only you can do, only the way you can do it. And so this new hybrid organization is coming down the pike. There's outsourced work, there's artificial intelligence, there's all that stuff that's getting done automatically. And then right in the center of it, the core of the entire operation, is that group of people who figure out how to bring something remarkable to the work that they are doing. And that's up to you early in the process. And if you didn't start your business this week, it's not too late. To make decisions about what it is to work in a studio, peer-to-peer, people speaking up, owning their choices, figuring out how to make things better all around them, even if technically, quote, it's not their job. The old model of industrialism is the owner tries to get as much from the workers as they possibly can and pay as little as possible. And in return, the workers try to get away with doing as little as possible, because if they don't, they're just going to get taken advantage of. But in the new work, in the work of creativity and imagination and possibility, none of that makes sense. What makes sense instead is to figure out who are the special people with a special attitude and a special posture that are going to change how your organization develops. The next part of this. It's hard to do all of this if you're trying to be average. Average has another name, mass. Mass means most people. Most people, by definition, are average. Mass is not your friend. Mass is no entrepreneur's friend. It is really unlikely that you will build anything bigger than Starbucks. And Starbucks only serves a tiny portion of the population. My books have sold millions of copies, and yet more than 95% of the people in the United States have not only never read one of my books, they probably have never even heard of me. And that is fine. It's fine because you don't want to be a wandering generality, as the late Zig Ziglar used to say. You want to be a meaningful specific. What it means to be a meaningful specific is to be peculiar, to be weird, to be an edge case, to be special, to be someone we would miss if you were gone. And to do that with all the pressures that are on you is difficult indeed, because your investors want you to be right in the middle because they want you to be big. And your employees don't want you to lean too close to an edge because they want to feel safe. And the customers who don't get the joke, the customers who didn't come to you for peculiar but just came because you were convenient and were hoping for average, they're not going to be shy about speaking up. But guess what? It's not for them. If someone was hoping that you would race to the bottom for them, to be the cheapest, easily replaceable, you need to say, I'm sorry, I'm not for you. Because the problem with the race to the bottom is that you might win. Or worse, come in second. The alternative is to race to the top. And you can only do that by being human. You cannot out-system Google. You cannot out-industrialize General Electric. It's not available to you. What's available to you is the chance to be more human. The biggest advantage your organization has over the big guys is simple. The CEO is in the room. The CEO and founder is listening. The CEO is ready to change things with alacrity, with grace, with flair, because you can see the others. I'm not proposing a fully custom business. If you want to be in the custom business, I think that's fine. If you want to be a custom architect or a custom baker, that's fine, but you need to charge appropriately. Custom work on demand should cost many times more than mass work. If that's your business, make that your business and be more custom than anyone else. All dreams satisfied within a certain range. But if you're not custom, you need to have boundaries. We serve these people with those problems. We don't do this and we don't do that. And it doesn't really matter if business is slow. When business gets slow, it might be a sign you're encountering the dip. And the dip, as we know, is real. But the answer is not to go race after a different early adopter, to go run away from this dip toward a different one. The answer is to realize you set out to be on this journey a while ago, and the journey is going to continue. And it's going to be funded and built and powered by humans, people with real needs who are not cogs in your machine or theirs. That when you become a cog in the industrial system, you might profit for a little while, but soon you will be replaced by somebody else who's an even more willing cog than you are. The chance instead is to build your own system, to build your own network, to support people in community, to make it so there are insiders and outsiders. That what you are doing as an entrepreneur is you are leading a circle, a tribe if you want to call them that. People who are aligned in the way they go through the world, who have a shorthand, who understand that people like us, not how we look, but how we believe and how we act, people like us, we do things like this. And your job is to establish what things like this are. Make a list right now of companies that you view as heroes, as companies you view as models, as home runs, as companies you'd like to aspire to be like. You got the list? I'm guessing that nobody on that list is about racing to the bottom, that no brand, no organization on that list is on it because they're the cheapest or the most brutal or a monopoly. That's not what we set out to do. What we set out to do is make a difference, to make things better by making better things. So the sign on your wall can say, when in doubt, be more human. That problem that's in front of you, if you didn't have to hide behind the fact that there's a company and you're the founder, and you could just solve that problem as a human, what would you do? That customer who's in front of you, the one who doesn't understand, how can you help them understand? How can you write to people? How can you earn permission? How can you tell stories that resonate with people at a human level? Because the big guys, they're stealing the industrial level. They're stealing we have a policy against that level. What's left for the rest of us is the chance to lean into the idea that we can treat people the way we'd like to be treated. And we can build something bigger than ourselves, but we can be proud of it because we're making things better. I don't think that's a rant. I think it's actually the roadmap that so many entrepreneurs need. To be specific, to be meaningful, to be peculiar, to listen, to learn, to see, and then, once you understand the system, to get better at contributing to it.